is Islam? Who is Muhammad? What do Muslims believe? Is the Quran the inspired word of God? Are Christianity and Islam compatible? Can they agree? Can they coincide and coexist? These are some of the questions that we will explore in this seminar. But let's begin by talking for just a moment about the worldwide impact of Islam. You realize that Islam is expanding and impacting the world. And it might surprise you to learn that the largest Muslim populations on the planet are not in the Middle East. In fact, the most populated Muslim country is Indonesia. That's Southeast Asia. And that's followed by Pakistan, which at one time was part of India. If we were to look at a chart showing the religious complexion of the world, we would find that Christianity continues to be the number one religion of the world with over 2 billion adherents, keeping in mind that that term Christian applies to a wide range of those who profess belief in Christ and the Christian religion, about half of those being Catholic. Notice that we have about 1 billion Hindus on the planet, and that's followed by about 1 billion atheists, unbelievers, secularists, humanists, those who claim to be irreligious. They have no religion whatsoever. A little over another billion consisting of Buddhism and other Oriental type religions. That makes Islam the number 2 religion on the planet, with about 1.3 billion adherents. If you were to take a look at the ethnicity of Muslims in the United States, you would find that only about 25% are Arab, with the majority being of South Central Asian origin. Well, some have suggested that this is one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing religions in the United States. Indeed, Islam is making extensive encroachments into American culture. Are you aware of the fact that the U.S. Post Office over a decade ago designed and implemented a postage stamp that is designed to commemorate 2 different aspects of Islamic celebration? Are you aware of the fact that mosques for several decades now have been springing up all over the United States, from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast? These mosques include, of course, the one that is planned and in the process in New York City at Ground Zero. So well over 1,000 mosques have been built in the United States just within the last, shall we say, 30 to 40 years. Interesting concept. Why suddenly now? And I believe the answer to that is because for the first 150 to 170 years of America's existence, American values were intact, based upon the Bible and the Christian worldview. But post-World War II years have been turbulent, morally, spiritually, culturally, socially, and consequently there's been an upheaval as many Americans are jettisoning their values, what were called traditional American values that were rooted in and based upon a Christian worldview. And notice, as you shove away from your society, from your population, Bible values, then certainly there is a void created, and there will be those who will rush in order to fill that void. And consequently, Islam and other world religions that are non-Christian in orientation have been infiltrating American civilization. Think in the news how often you are hearing of these encroachments. For example, schools made room for Ramadan celebration among many of their students. Ramadan is being taught in public schools all over our country, recognized and actually incorporated into the curriculum. There have been major universities across the country that have installed prayer rooms for Muslim students. They wouldn't do anything like that for Christian students. The Kansas City airport some time ago installed foot baths for Muslim cabbies. There's even been a Muslim public school that has been funded by taxpayer money. So this infiltration, this alteration of the complexion of American civilization is taking place before our very eyes. On September 25th, 2009, several thousand Muslims gathered on the lawn of our capital in order to engage in Islamic prayers. So, massive expansion of Islam into American civilization. What is this religion that has become essentially the second largest religion in the world? Well, to answer that question, you will have to go back to the 6th century AD, when in the city of Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia, if you were to look at a map of the Arabian Peninsula, you would see along the coast of the Red Sea the town of Mecca, Muhammad's birth city. There Muhammad was born in 570 AD. Do you know that his father died actually before he was born? And his mother died when he was but 6 years old. He was turned over to the care of first his grandfather, who later died and then passed from uncle to uncle. He grew up in Saudi Arabia like a typical Bedouin child, Bedouin boy, tending goats and sheep. He learned the weapons of war. He traveled with kinsmen on trading expeditions, which would have exposed him to a broader segment of society, even beyond the borders of Arabian society. When Muhammad was 25 years old, he met a woman who invited him to take responsibility for one of her caravans. She was a wealthy widow woman, which he agreed to do, and he so conducted himself in such a fine, trustworthy fashion that ultimately she offered herself in marriage to Muhammad. Her name was Khadija. She was 15 years his senior, 40 years old at the time he was 25. And consequently, this kind of opened up a new life for Muhammad. He had more leisure time. He was able to engage in activities that enabled him to be more contemplative and to enjoy the respite of vacation time. Looking at a NASA satellite view of Mecca, you can see that this is a very rugged desert area of the earth. And we are informed by historians that in the year AD 610, at the age of 40 years old, Muhammad was out away from Mecca, up in a mountain range, kind of from public life, and he was actually at Mount Hira. And while he was there, he noticed sort of an opening in the rock, a cave that he decided to go into in order to escape the intense heat of the desert. And he claims that while he was in that cave, the angel Gabriel appeared to him and delivered to him a revelation from God, the first of 114 revelations over the next 23 years, which then were assembled together after his death to form Al-Quran, which in Arabic means the reading or the recitation, that which is recited orally. And that is in fact the origin of the Quran according to Islamic history. If you were to take the Quran and begin reading it and work your way through these separate and distinct revelations called in the Quran surahs, one of the first things you would notice, especially in the early ones, that the subject matter seems to be primarily focused upon denouncing Arab idolatry and condemning Arab polytheism. You see, you have to know something of Arab tribal life at this point in history. Most of the Arab tribal groups are very tribal-oriented, very blood-kin-oriented. They were very polytheistic, believed in many gods. Consequently, the Quran stressed the concept of monotheism and condemned the belief in many gods. Well, as soon as Muhammad began to express those views to his fellow Meccans, I assure you, hostilities commenced. You see, his hometown tribal group, of which he was a member, known as the Quraysh, were known peninsula-wide as the keep of the Kaaba. What is the Kaaba? If If you were to go to Mecca today, you would see this amazing cube-like structure that Muslims claim, though it existed at the very beginning of time, built by Adam, was later destroyed in the flood. And then they believe that God commissioned Abraham and his son Ishmael to rebuild the Kaaba together. And then God ordered pilgrimage to be made into that location, a minimum of annually, by those who believed in Islam. Muslims believe that since Abraham's day, over the centuries, the Kaaba became corrupted in its use and began to be used for idolatrous purposes. In fact, there were idols that were literally placed there. And consequently, Muhammad saw himself as having the responsibility to condemn this idolatry and to try to put a stop to polytheism. Well, his insistence upon monotheism placed him in direct conflict with the very foundation of the local economy, which depended heavily upon polytheism, because the Quraysh were the ones who were responsible for drawing Arabs from all over the peninsula to Mecca in order to engage in these idolatrous observances. So hostilities began to be directed against Muhammad, and they began to intensify as he began to have some success. For example, he began to make converts, initially primarily among young people and slaves, and yet with that kind of growing influence, he was perceived as a greater threat than he had been initially. And this opposition to Muhammad continued to intensify and grow until he was eventually forced to flee for his life from his hometown of Mecca. Consequently, he fled to the north, where a group of individuals had embraced his thinking, a little band of Muslims. They had already embraced Islam, and so they invited him to come and to live with them, and so he took about a 12-day camel ride to the north, to the city of Medina. Again, looking at a NASA satellite photo, you can see also a very...
I want to stop. Peace to everybody. Peace to everybody. Shalom, shalom, assalamu alaikum. I wanted to stop the video right there because, to be honest with you, he's lying. He's lying about that part about the history of Muhammad's Hajj to Medina. There was not a little band of Muslims. It was, okay, he told half a truth. I'm going to put it that way. The half truth is, yes, they were Muslims. Yes, they did practice Islam. Before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made Hajj to Medina, he didn't practice Islam. Didn't know what Islam was. It wasn't until he made Hajj to Medina and stayed with his grandfathers and uncles from Ansar is when he learned Islam. And that is according to the Hadith. This is according to Islamic literature. All right? So when Muhammad, peace be upon him, made Hajj to Medina, the first thing he did was keep the day of Ashura, which was an event of celebration of the drowning of Pharaoh, the liberation of the Israelites in the wilderness of the Sinai Peninsula. So that was the day of Ashura. There are some denominations of Islamic believers that still keep that day, mainly amongst the Shiites. They still do keep the day of Ashura. But the day of Ashura was actually what we would call today a Jewish tradition. Also, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also made salat or prayer facing Jerusalem for about 16 or 17 months, according to the Hadith. So, as far as them not, this man explaining the history of Islam and the path of Muhammad, reluctant to speak on the fact that Muhammad had lodged with Jews who were Muslims. And this is where he structured his religion of what is today Sunni Islam, or keeping the habit or following the habit of the Prophet Muhammad. So this is more explained within the Hadith. To be more exact, the Prophet Muhammad comes from a Jewish bloodline, which is reluctant to be mentioned. Because it destroys the overall tone of, the Jews being a corrupt people and a corrupt bloodline. To know that the Prophet himself was in fact an ethnic Jew. And you can read this in, let me see, the grandfathers of Muhammad. You can read that in An-Nisa, which that is, Surah 41, I believe. But let me see if I can go to that real quick before we continue. Where it speaks about the grandfathers or the uncles that took in the Prophet Muhammad. Maybe so that's Surah 2, Surah 2. Or the second book of the Quran. Going down to, let me see, verse 43, 143. Or ayat 143. Which states, thus we have made, well, I'm going to let you hear it.
وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا وما جعلنا القبلة التي كنت عليها إلا لنعلم من يتبع الرسول ممن ينقلب على عقبيه وإن كانت لكبيرة إلا على الذين هدى الله وما كان الله ليضيع إيمانكم إن الله بالناس لرؤوف رحيم.
Thus we made you a moderate community, that you may be witnesses to humanity, and that the messenger may be a witness to you. We only established the direction of prayer, which you once followed, that we may distinguish those who follow the messenger from those who turn on their heels. It is indeed difficult, except for those whom Allah has guided. But Allah would never let your faith go to waste. Allah is kind towards the people, merciful.
So that speaks on the change in the direction of prayer. According to the Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad was facing Jerusalem in prayer, which is a Jewish tradition. So he was in the mosque, in the masjid, making salat towards Jerusalem before he decided to change his direction in prayer. This is what caused it wasn't that these people wasn't monotheistic, it wasn't that they didn't believe in the God of Abraham. It was the fact that the Prophet Muhammad wanted to be a prophet. He wanted to be like Moses. So he decided to claim that he received a prophecy to face the opposite direction of Jerusalem. And this is what caused the friction, this is what caused the fight between the Muslims of Medina against Muhammad and his followers. So those, according to the Quran, those who face the Qibla, those who face Mecca, are doing so, okay, to distinguish those who follow the messenger from those who turn on their heels. So this is what makes the fashion of the Sunni sect of Islam, is because of those who face Mecca. Those who face Mecca in prayer. Second Qibla. The first Qibla was facing Jerusalem, which was a Solomon tradition. It was a Jewish tradition, being that Muhammad was from a Jewish tribe. And that Jewish tribe, Muhammad was born, I'll get a little history. Muhammad was born in the Banu Hashim of the Quraysh tribe. They were blood relatives to the Banu Najjar of Medina. So the Banu Najjar of Medina, who were Jews, okay? His grandfather, Abdul Muttalib Sheba ibn Hashim, Muttalib ibn Abid Manif was the brother of Hashim. Hashim ibn Abid Manif, the grandfather of Muhammad. Amil al-Ula and Salama bint Ammar was the grandmother. The grandmother was of the Banu Najjar tribe, which were Hebrew Israelites or Jews. All right, so being that his family was at the least half Jewish, once Muhammad was kicked out of Mecca and made Hajj to Medina, that's who he stayed with. He stayed with his Muslim Jewish family. And that's where he started to learn and get the structure of Islam. Now, according to the Hadith, so let me get to the Hadith where it explains exactly what happened to cause the change in the Qibla. So I'm going to go to the Hadith, and so I can read out, give you the number of the book and everything so you can read it for yourself. Having a little technical difficulties here. Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties here. My app, my Hadith app is not working. So I'm going to go back to the video so we can listen to this man explain a little more. I just wanted to stop it to give you that clarification, and then I will bring up the hadith and the book and volume so you can understand what happened to change the Qibla. What is the true event according to Islamic text? So I will definitely be back with that. So I'm going to continue with the video. And then I'm going to talk about
to the north
why I chose AsLam over Islam. And there's a difference. It's a difference in spelling, and it's also a difference in meaning. So I do want to express that.
To the city of Medina. Again, looking at a NASA satellite photo, you can see also a very deserty, rugged part of the world. But notice from the air how you can see this very visible, very obvious object that appears in the very center of Medina. In fact, at nighttime it stands out. Well, this is in fact the Mosque of the Prophet, it is called. It is the mosque that Muhammad began to have built during his lifetime. In fact, there is a portion there that has a green dome where he is actually buried. This amazing mosque, of course, has been built and added to and developed over the centuries, and it continues to be a very prominent site for Muslims to attend to, because this is in fact the location where Muhammad fled from Mecca and became his adopted city. Let me give you just a little bit of information that'll kind of scope for you very briefly the life of Muhammad. In AD 619, his wife Khadija died. Up to this point, Muhammad had been purely monogamous. He had only one wife. And yet, within about a year of this event, the death of his wife, he claims to have made a trip to heaven. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, within a year of the death of his wife, he claims that he was ordered by God to marry the daughter of his best friend Abu Bakr. At the time, that daughter, Aisha, Islamic sources say, was 6 years old. Within another couple of years, the Hijrah occurred, that is, his flight from Mecca to Medina because of the persecutions that were levied against him by his hometown tribe of the Quraysh. Consequently, the year AD 622 is a very critical, very prominent event in Islamic history. In fact, all of Islamic history, and therefore to a Muslim, all of world history, is dated from the Hijrah, the flight from Mecca to Medina. In fact, as you read through the Quran, there are clearly surahs that pertain to events preceding the Hijrah. So these are surahs that pertain to events in Mecca. And then you have other surahs that clearly indicate a post-Hijrah circumstance or context. And these are those that were given during the period that Muhammad was in Medina. So the Quran has Meccan surahs and Medinan surahs for the most part. Now, once Muhammad shifted from Mecca to Medina, let me give you a very brief scoping of history at this point. He engaged in armed conflict with Jewish tribal groups that were living in Medina. Fascinating concept that is, the Jews all the way back in Babylonian times, Babylonian captivity, were dispersed. And right on down to the time of Christ, centuries later, there's indication in Acts chapter 2, for example, the Jews that came for Pentecost in the year AD 30 came from nations all over the world. And that Acts chapter 2. So these Jewish tribal groups were living in various parts, and there were a number of them living there in Medina, probably been there for centuries, for generations, who therefore they were Arabic in the sense that they had enculturated, but they were still a very Jewish, very monotheistic. Well, when Muhammad presented himself to these Jewish individuals in hopes that they would understand that he saw himself as the logical sequel or the logical continuation of Judaism and Christianity, and kind of the post-occurrence of proper religion, He hoped that the Jews would accept him as another prophet in this long line of prophets going all the way back to Adam. However, that was not to be, and consequently, conflict emerged and hostilities commenced between Muhammad and his followers and the Jewish tribal groups. In the meantime, there were other Arab groups that he had conflicts with because they were polytheistic. He was wanting them to submit to the notion of monotheism. And then you have the fact that his hometown tribe of Quraysh were not willing to allow him to leave unscathed. It's true that he had fled from their grasp, but they wanted to rid themselves of him. They still had issues with him. And consequently, they would literally launch attempts to assassinate Muhammad. Also during this period, Islam continued to expand. More conversions were made. Muhammad's military strength was likewise increasing. And also, I might point out that during this period, Muhammad began to add wives, add women to his harem. And consequently, he would have another living quarters constructed adjacent to the mosque that was being built in Medina. And he claims during this period that he continued to receive revelations from Allah, the Arabic word for God. Moving down to AD 630, about 8 years after his having fled from his hometown of Mecca, we find that he had achieved sufficient military strength that he was able to gather his military forces and march on his hometown of Mecca. At this point, he subjugated essentially the entire population. He purged the Kaaba of all of its polytheism and engaged in some other actions, but for all practical purposes brought in under submission, which by the way is the meaning of the word Islam, submission. Notice the form of the same word, Islam, Muslim. Muslim, one who submits. So he brought under submission the population of Mecca, but he did not move in and begin to live there. He went back home to Medina, back to his adopted city. Within 2 years of his bringing Mecca under control, he returned for another pilgrimage that turned out to be the farewell, the final pilgrimage trip to Mecca. That was AD 632. And later that year, June 8th, at the age of 62, Muhammad died of what is essentially an unknown illness. Now that is a very brief recapping of the life of Muhammad to help us to be somewhat acquainted with this individual that has occupied so much attention over the last 14 or 1500 years. Now let me give you a very brief thumbnail sketch of Islam as it has manifested itself since the death of Muhammad. Remember now, Muhammad claimed to be a prophet of God. And their claims, and Muslims claim that he was the quintessential prophet of God. He was the ultimate and final prophet of God. And so when he died in AD 632, the Islamic community was momentarily, shall we say, disoriented. It was quite a blow to them that the prophet would die so unexpectedly, and they were initially kind of uncertain as to what they were due. I don't believe there was any concern or thought about appointing a new prophet. They believed he was the last prophet. But they did feel that there needed to be a community leader, somebody who would lead or serve as a proper authority among the Muslims. And so there immediately began to be discussion about, well, who should that be? And there was immediately a disagreement, of course, about who should replace Muhammad. But this disagreement was fairly quickly squelched, and Abu Bakr was selected, close friend of Muhammad. Muhammad had married his daughter, and consequently Abu Bakr became the first Khalifa, the first Caliph, sort of a deputy vice-regent. And he served in that capacity from the death of Muhammad to AD 634, at which time he was replaced by Umar, who was another very close associate of Muhammad, going back to the very beginning of Muhammad's teaching and promotion of Islam. He served in that capacity for about a decade, and then at his demise, he was replaced by Uthman. Now, up to this point, we have general consensus within the Islamic community on each of these individuals because they went right back to the time of Muhammad. They were very prominent figures. Uthman served in that capacity for over a decade, about 12 years. But at this point in Islamic history, 656 AD, the division, the seeds of which occurred right after the death of Muhammad, now came to a head. And the Islamic community essentially split apart into two primary factions. The first of these factions believed that the successor to Muhammad should be a blood relative, somebody directly linked back to Muhammad by blood. These individuals became known as Shiites because of the Arabic word Shia that has to do with being party to or partisan to. And so they selected Ali, who could trace his lineage back to Muhammad, and he became the first Shiite imam. That would be one of the terms that's used by Shiites to refer to their leaders. His two sons successively succeeded him, Hassan and Hussein. All individuals that agreed with that perspective, that the leader of the Islamic community should be connected directly to Muhammad, they, to this day, are known as imams or ayahs, and you've heard of the Ayatollah, for example. Now, the other element in the Islamic community that disagreed with that view said, no, the community leader can be someone who is selected by community consent, somebody that the community recognizes as a suitable and appropriate leader. These individuals became known as Sunnis. And in fact, the majority of Muslims have gone this direction. And consequently, they selected their first leader, and then over the centuries, other caliphs, sultans, sheikhs were selected to be the community leader of the Muslims, and they sort of set up what we might call dynasties, caliphates, the Arabs would call it. And so there was the Umayyad Caliphate and the Abbasid, and this ultimately culminated in what we would call the Ottoman Empire, which had its center in Turkey. So the Ottoman Turks were kind of a climaxing of Islamic influence in art and architecture and other areas of development. And for all practical purposes, the Ottoman Empire came to a close about the time of World War I. That is a very brief history of Islam in its political manifestations over the centuries. Now, let me comment very quickly on this major split that occurred between the Shiites and the Sunnis. I cannot overstate the significance of this division. It is very prominent in the minds of Muslims worldwide. There may be an attempt by the Muslim world to give the impression that, oh, we're all united, we all agree, unlike you Christians and other groups that are all fragmented. But the facts of the matter are, this is a split of really rather catastrophic proportions. In fact, many times when you hear, even in Iraq and such places, of warring and killing going on, many times it is a clash between the Shiites and the Sunnis, even if Westerners have come and somehow gotten involved in the fracas. Well, as it turns out, the Shiites went on to split many more times and to divide over various disagreements. The Sunnis have done the same thing. There have been many factions and many divisions and disagreements over their thinking. A fellow came about probably a century or so ago by the name of Wahhabi. He was kind of a Puritan in his thinking. He believed in going back to what he called the golden age of Islamic history, when it was purely Arabic, and consequently he advocated warlike jihad, a viewpoint that is promulgated and championed by even the Saudi royal family. If I were to try to give you some sense worldwide of the Muslim population in terms of Shiite versus Sunni, here is how that would lay out. Roughly 13 to 14% are Shiite, whereas the rest are Sunni. So if we were to round numbers, about 90% of the population of Islam is Sunni, and therefore about 10% are Shiite. In our next session together, we will examine the question, why do radical Muslims hate Americans? And then we will turn our attention to the basic beliefs of Islam. What are their basic fundamental doctrines? What constitutes their overall belief system?
So now, inshallah, let me get to the portion where I left off at, as far as Muhammad. I spoke about him being a Jew through his grandmother, through the tribe Banu Najjar. This is the tribe that Muhammad stayed with, the Jewish tribe, the Jewish Muslim tribe, who the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stayed with when he made the forced Hajj, the forced pilgrimage to Medina. So when you go into the Hadith, and if you go to Sahih al-Bukhari 40, Book 2, Hadith 33, it will read and it will tell you the event of when Muhammad arrived to Medina. Who did the Prophet stay with? What were some of the Prophet's actions, and what caused the Qibla, or the change in direction of prayer? So when you read that with a critical mind set, in a common sense and an understanding mind, it's really not hard to understand that the Prophet was of Jewish origins and was learning from Jews, was learning Islam, was learning the structure, and according to Sahih al-Bukhari 40 in your Hadith, Book 2, Hadith 33, the English Volume 1, Book 2, Hadith 40, when you read that, it tells you that while Muhammad was in the masjid making salat facing Jerusalem, that the Prophet decided to change his direction of prayer in the middle of salat. And this angered the Muslims, the Jewish Muslims, which I'm going to just call them Muslims because that's what they were. They were not Sunni. See, there's a difference between Muslim and Sunni and whatever other fashion it is. So you have Muslims, then you have Sunni Muslims, you have Shiite Muslims, you got Sufi Muslims, you have many different denominations of Muslims, the largest being the Sunni. And this is those who follow the habit of the Prophet. That's what a Sunni is. So we understand that the Quran was not actually orchestrated from the exact mouth of the Prophet. We understand that through, Islamic literature. So we understand that the Quran itself could be tampered. It could be. A lot of Muslims, definitely Sunnis, do not want to hear that. But on a common sense level, yes, if the scribe was not scribing the information that was put into this holy Quran, if he did not receive this from the Prophet himself, but it wasn't until after the death of the Prophet is when this revelation came about, as far as to inscribe or write it down or create a text. Many Sunnis would cut your head off for disrespecting the Quran or doing anything around the Quran that they considered haram or sinful or forbidden. Smoking, cursing, leaving the Quran dusty, putting things, objects, your remote control on the Quran, letting the Quran hit the floor, things of this nature in the Sunni belief and religion and theology, you can be condemned for. Let's not even get into the Sharia law that was established. That's not really based, it's based off of a few ayats or a few verses in the Quran, and they elaborated a whole legal system that, in my opinion, is oppressive. In my opinion. But that's just my opinion. But what I have done as far as my conversion, because yes, I have took my shahada. And the difference between my shahada and those who practice the Sunni sect of Islam is that it's the meaning. It's the meaning of what I said, what I believe I meant when I said the shahada. And this is what's going to, bring me to why I chose AsLam instead of Islam. And there's a big significance. As we just listen to a brief history of Islam by, a Western view, we see this great separation. First, when we understand the hadith and read the hadith, we know that Muhammad was cast out of his own homeland, forced out because of his theology, because of his ideas. His own family pushed him out. Then his other family embraced him, covered him, allowed him to lodge with them, taught him Islam, structure, religion. He made, taught him about the prayers and everything, basically structured Muhammad's understanding of the deen, of the faith. And then we come to a separation that Muhammad himself, peace be upon him, created when he changed his direction in prayer. That's the first separation. So we see that, there was, at its essence of Sunni Islam, the essence of Sunni Islam is separation. And it is war. That's the essence of it. And we see that manifest in Sunni Islam, being that, again, we see the separation between the Sunni and the Shiites over a caliph, over who's going to be the leader, who's going to be the representative of what we believe. And then you have to ask yourself, is that what being a Muslim is? I'm supposed to submit to Allah alone. So why am I keeping the habit of a mortal man that no longer exists, breathing, alive? Why are Muslims fighting over who is supposed to be the leader, who's supposed to be the caliph, when we're supposed to submit to God alone? We're not even supposed to worry about, we don't need a representative. Allah is our representative. And as long as we are good Muslims and act in the way of peace, then we don't. That's what represents us. The action of peace. That's what Muslim means. When you break down the word and definition of Muslim, mu as a prefix means to act. Salam is peace. So Muslim means to act in peace. And this is where I'm going to go when I was speaking on what I meant in my heart when I took my Shahada. And I took my Shahada to a masjid or anything like that. I actually seen a video of a Muslim speaking on how, to convert to Islam and, what to say, how to take your Shahada. And basically, it says it's good to have 2 or 3 witnesses when you take your Shahada. But, of course, the individual on the video says, sure, you can record yourself taking your Shahada and you can link the video to me. I will be your witness that you took your Shahada. And plus your video is on YouTube, so you'll have many witnesses that you took your Shahada. And that's exactly what I did until I do, actually find a masjid that I'm comfortable with, attending. But then again, I actually wanted to develop my own because of what I practice. I don't practice Islam. I practice AsLam. And I want to, I'm going to get into exactly what AsLam is. But I just wanted, to get us familiar with what Islam is and the history of Islam and why I chose something a little more safer. Something that gives me a little more freedom. Something that is more intact when it comes to my dedication to Allah. I don't want to deal with a religion that forces me to follow the habit of man or mankind or a man figure. That idea of following a prophet or giving so much honor to a human individual on a spiritual level is wrong. It's wrong for your freedom. And we're supposed to be free under Allah. But what we do is we entrap ourselves into the prison of being followers, being subjected to someone else's idea and theory, when we're not supposed to indulge in that type of mentality, action, or lifestyle. So those who are Sunnis are no different than the Christian, who is a Sunni themselves. They just keep the habit and follow the habit of the Prophet Isa, or that's Arabic for Jesus. So those who believe in Jesus, those who try to keep the walk, as the Prophet Isa says, as the Prophet Jesus says, in order to be my disciple, you must give up all your worldly possessions and bear your cross and follow me. So what Isa is telling his followers is that you must drop everything and be the example as Jesus was the example. Let Jesus be your example in life. Walk as Jesus walked. Be Christ-like. So when someone says to be Christ-like, and then you have another fashion of religion that says, well, we're trying to be Muhammad-like. What's the difference? Which one is following the dedication towards Allah? Neither one, not even the Jew of today, who lives by the rabbinical order, meaning that They follow the order, the words, the theory, the idea, the commentary of the rabbi. So it's not God's word that's important to the Jew, but it's the word and the theory of the rabbi. And this is why they created a book called the Talmud, which is the primary book of their religious culture, structure, and traditions. So we see within Christianity, there is a following towards a male figure, a man figure. We see that in Sunni Islam and Shiite Islam, Sufi Islam. We also see that in Judaism. So who is truly submitting to God in these religions? And when you really be honest and not try to be associated with an idea, with a cult, with a group. Everybody wants an identity. We do need human interaction. It makes you feel good to be with like-minded people who believe and follow, or you think believe and follow within the same tradition and culture and mind frame you do. That's a beautiful thing. That's unity. And who do not want to be united with their human family? But at what expense? Are we going to ignore facts and truth because we want to belong, because we want to be accepted, because we want to be different from these people over here? So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So let me join these people over here because they're against these people over here. And I don't like those people over there, so I'm going to get with y'all. I don't like Christianity, so I'm going to be Muslim. Just because I don't like Christianity. Just because I don't like white people. And they don't like Islam. So I might as well just become Islamic without truly understanding the religion that you're a part of. And then to condemn them. To condemn, for a Muslim to condemn a Jew, not even understanding that the prophet that they are trying to keep the habit of was a Jew, who defected from his Jewish family, who embraced him, took care of him, nurtured his religious ideas, to the point that he turned his back on them and did his own thing at the expense of going to war with them. Condemned the Jews without admitting that he was one himself. Condemning the Christian. Condemning everyone. So it's just, the start of this Islamic Sunni religion was the origin of condemning other people, separating, forcing people to follow your way. Disrespecting the cultures and traditions of other people, even if those people accepted you in, brung you in, saved you when your own people was trying to kill you, and these other people embraced you, you still decide to go to war with those who saved you. Is this not what goes on in Islam today? Does not many Sunni Muslims travel all around the world, go into these Western countries, Europe, America, and then condemn the culture, tradition, and religion of those people, but yet did not stay in their own homeland where it's supposed to be peace? The culture of Islam is the structure of that society. But there's no peace there. So you run away. So you can have peace. So you can have, your family can live and have some peace in their life and not worry about being killed, shot. You ain't got to worry about your wife being raped. You don't have to live under that Sharia law. that's oppressing you. So you run to Europe, you run to America, you run to Canada, you go somewhere to a country that is not Islamic, and then you try to impose your culture on that culture. It sounds very familiar. It sounds like the origin of the religion itself. Now, I'm not here to disrespect, because Christianity and Judaism have not so much of a dissimilar history. We know that the story of the Israelites, where they were brought in to Egypt by the Egyptians. They was given the best lands of Egypt. Things went for a wrong turn after the death of Joseph. And I could speak on Joseph because Joseph is mentioned in the Quran. Matter of fact, Joseph have his own book, a whole book in the Quran speaking about the story of Joseph, the son of Jacob, who was basically the governor of Egypt. So if you are well versed in the Quran, then you know this story because this story is in the Quran. So after the death of Joseph, there was a new Pharaoh rose up, did not know Joseph, did not know the Hebrews, and started to enslave the Hebrews, condemn and kill, and force them to hard labor. So they were begging to get out of that situation. Here come Musa, here come Moses, and the whole event of the plagues on Pharaoh, the Passover, them walking out of Egypt, and Pharaoh chasing them down and drowning in the Red Sea. This is spoken about in the Quran. The same story that's spoken about in the Torah. And what did the Israelites do? What did the Hebrews do after they went through their trial and error in the 40 years in the wilderness? They went into the land of Canaan. The Canaanites have never done anything wrong to the Hebrews. Matter of fact, the land of Canaan had embraced Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When we read the Torah, and a true Muslim is supposed to understand the Torah, the Injil, and the Quran, then this is according to the Quran. It tells you should be well versed in all three books, because a true Muslim makes no distinction between the prophets. So again, if you are a Sunni Islam, why are you only accepting one prophet and only keeping a habit of one prophet when there were many prophets? And there was only one chosen prophet, and that was mentioned in the Quran as being Musa, or Moses. Moses was the chosen prophet. According to Surah 19, Ayat 51, Moses was the only prophet to speak directly to Allah, according to Surah 4, Ayat 164. So, it's just, when you look at the history of Islam and the wars and the corruption that goes on in this homeland, the history of disrespect, the history of enslavement, murder, and rape. Just like the Hebrews went into the land of Canaan, Canaanites allowed Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to stay in their land. They didn't rob them. They didn't murder them. They walked in the land of Canaan peacefully. But then, in the time of the Exodus, they went into the land of Canaan not to enter in the land of Canaan with peace, but they went into the land of Canaan to destroy and kill the Canaanites and displace them out of their homes and take over. This was the plan. This was what was told to the Hebrews to do to the Canaanites. Now, can you imagine if you was a Canaanite and these people just, marched around your city walls and blew horns and yelled and screamed, murder, murder, murder. Then the walls came crumbling down. They rushed into your city of Jericho and burned your houses and ravished your women and killed your babies and displaced you. Can you imagine how the Canaanites looked at the Israelites? These were the worst, most evilest people in existence to come and just take their land like that. Christianity. And everybody knows the horrors and the evils that Christianity have done with the beginnings of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ by the Romans. Some people say, well, the Jews killed Jesus. Jews never laid a hand on Jesus. And when you get deeper into the story, understanding the Torah and everything else, that the Romans had control over Jerusalem. The Romans did not follow Torah. They didn't follow none of that Jewish culture. So to condemn Jesus based upon a Jewish law, and they didn't follow Jewish law, they killed Jesus for no reason. The Jews knew better than to let, he might have been the Messiah. They wasn't sure. So they, even though they asked the Romans to kill Jesus, it was the Romans' choice to do it. But the Jews themselves wasn't going to lay a hand on Jesus. They wasn't going to kill Jesus. They could have killed him themselves. They didn't have to take Jesus to the Romans and say, kill him. But they did it so the blood wouldn't be on their hands. And also, Jesus was messing up the money system. The Pharisees, who were the Edomites, were getting money. But I'm going too far. The point is that Christianity, from the time of Jesus, even before the time of Jesus, the time of the Maccabees, because Christianity is a Catholic religion. It really stems out of Italy, Rome, Greece. The worship of the sun, the worship of Zeus, the worship of the saints. Definitely if you're Catholic, you got Saint Michael, Saint Peter, Saint somebody, Saint Paul, Saint. They worship Saint Mary, they worship saints, and saints are real people. These are supposed to have been real people. It's no different than a Muslim giving high honor to Muhammad. It's no different than a Catholic, giving high honor to one of their saints. And no different than giving, high honor to the crucifixion, to the death of Jesus Christ, trying to, each religion have its own issue. That's not right. So why are we a part of these religions if we know the history isn't right? We want something with some peace. We want to be a part of something that's really going to benefit our lives, our children's lives, our children's children. We want a religion that's going to bring about peace through the generations. But the religion has to start off with peace. There's no way that you're going to have peace when you went to war. The Israelites, the Hebrews, was not going to have any peace because they started their journey going to war. Conquering. Taking someone else's land mass. Someone else's property. Christianity have done it. nations have done this to other nations in the name of their religion, in the name of Christianity, in the name of Islam. Islam have forcibly converted, enslaved, raped Africa through the centuries. Christianity have done the same thing. Judaism, the Jews have orchestrated and financed slavery and all type of, we don't want to even get into what they have done and are doing. And their job is supposed to spread peace, spread the Torah, spread the word of Allah to the people, be the example of the word of Allah to the people. And yet they are secular, they are secret, they are money hungry, they treat everybody as a Gentile and believe that everybody is to be killed or used as servants for their cause. This is the belief of these secular Jews, these Zionists. Is this no different than the belief of a Christian who believe, well, you are damned to hell, you are damned to a bitter and destructive life if you don't believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior? Do they not feel as if you're damned for hellfire because you don't believe in Jesus Christ? Is your life less worthy because you don't believe as they believe? Is your life less worthy because you are not an ethnic Jew? So you're a Gentile worthy of death or enslavement? Are you destined for death, enslavement, or persecution because you're not of a certain faith? You don't believe in a certain prophet? You don't follow the ways of a certain prophet? You don't speak a certain language? You can't articulate a certain religious word, so you are a Dajjal, you are an infidel? Is this the religions of peace? No, not to my understanding, not to my research. So this is why I personally had to reject Islam. So when I said my Shahada, and I wanted to play the exact video that kind of, helped me to make do the testimony and testify, doing the Shahada without actually having to go in front of an imam or masjid and kind of feel out of place and uncomfortable. I was able to do it in the safety of my own essence. And so I'm going to play the video for you. This is an 11-minute video. And it's right on YouTube, and it's entitled How to Convert to Islam. It's under Slave of Allah. All right, so just check the video out or whatever, and then I'm going to recite to you exactly what I said, and then I want to break down exactly what I meant when I said my Shahada.
There is none worthy of worship except Allah, and that He is to be worshipped alone with no partners. You understand that Allah will not leave us in the dark without showing us how to live. Well, this video has been put together especially for you. You've not come across this video by chance. In fact, you were guided here by your Creator, Allah. You've probably been praying for guidance, and so So Allah is answering your prayer, and inshallah, you're now ready to become a Muslim. So how does it work exactly? Actually, it's very simple. There's no baptism, no odd rituals or fancy ceremonies. To become a Muslim, all you have to do is declare your faith in Islam. That's it. Easy, right? This declaration of faith is called the Shahada, and is the first pillar of Islam. All of the beliefs in Islam are encapsulated in these two statements that make up your Shahada. I'll say it first in English and then in Arabic. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his slave and messenger. Now in Arabic, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Now don't worry, I'll repeat that at the end of the video. But first, I want to explain what the Shahada means. When you say La ilaha illallah, you're saying literally that there is no God except Allah. But the word for a God in Arabic is ilah, which means something that is deserving of worship. So ultimately, what you're saying is that there is none worthy of worship except the one who is worthy of worship. Allah, God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. When you say Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, you achieve two things. That Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is the slave of Allah, the worshipper of Allah, the messenger of Allah. Why is this important? Well, in the past, some of Allah's prophets were wrongly deified, worshipped alongside of, or in place of Allah. So this statement reinforces that worship is only for Allah. Second, by testifying that Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is the messenger of Allah, you're also accepting the message that he was given, the Quran, as well as the things he taught and the examples he set for us. You accept the articles of faith, the thing every Muslim believes in, belief in Allah, belief in the angels, his books, his messengers, judgment day, and predestination. You also accept the 5 pillars of Islam, the actions of a Muslim, which are the Shahada, which we've been discussing, Salah, the daily prayers, Zakat, annual charity, Sawm, fasting during the month of Ramadan, and Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca that every Muslim must make once in their lifetime if they can afford it. Now that you fully understand what it means to be a Muslim, you're ready to take your Shahada. Even though it's not an absolute requirement, it's best to have at least 2 witnesses for your Shahada, since this is meant to be a public declaration of your faith. Now I know that some people might not have close Muslim friends, or how to get in touch with their local mosque. Well, I can help you with those 2 things. I have another idea that'll be really cool, inshallah. Since you're here on YouTube, I want you to record your Shahada and upload it to YouTube. This way, you'll definitely have more than 2 witnesses, and inshallah, you'll get a nice warm welcome from the YouTube Muslim community. This invitation goes out to anyone watching this video. Even if you're already Muslim, I encourage you to make a video and recite the Shahada, and post a link back to this video in your description, adding response to and the link. There is a blessing for you every time you repeat those words, and inshallah, having everyone participate may give our non-Muslim brothers and sisters the courage to take their Shahada as well. If Allah was to wipe clean every single sin that you ever committed in your life in exchange for a sincere Shahada, that'd be an excellent deal? Well, Allah makes you an even better deal. Not only does He wipe all the sins that you ever committed in your life, but He takes those sins, transforms them into rewards, and gives them back to you. So, not only do you start your life from that moment without sin, but you start your life way in front with all those rewards you've just been given. Now, is that an awesome deal or what? Well, there's still more. Do you want to know what the last person to make it to paradise gets? Well, before I tell you what he gets, let me explain who he is. The last person to make it into paradise is a person who hasn't done any good in his life except declare his faith in Islam, the Shahada, until he was sent to hellfire to atone for his unrepentant sins. So what would be a fair reward for this person? Well, let's say that person is you. Would you be happy with a mansion in paradise? What about a city? Will that make you happy? How about a whole state for yourself? A country? How about the entire earth? Surely that has to satisfy the greediest of us. Well, Allah promised that the last person to make it into paradise will have 10 times this earth, everything in it, in size. All that for a sincere declaration of faith. That was the reward for the last person in level 1. And there are 99 levels in paradise. Level 1 is like the size of a ring that you wear on your finger. And level 2, the size of a desert. How big is that ring compared to the desert? And level 2 is also a ring. And level 3 is desert. And so on. So if level 1 gets 10 times this earth and everything in it in size, what does level 2 get? Let alone the higher levels. So whether you're a Muslim, a non-Muslim, a new Muslim, or a semi-Muslim, let's all take the Shahada right now. And inshallah, if you're able to, record a video of yourself reciting the Shahada and upload it to YouTube. And don't forget to add a link back to this video. Okay, are you ready? I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his slave and messenger. Now, in Arabic, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. MashaAllah. If you just took your Shahada, you are now official Muslim. All of your past sins are not only forgiven,
So that was the video. And I decided to go ahead and do my Shahada. And I linked it and all that, right? But the difference is I wanted to actually know what I was saying. A lot of times, you know, we'll take, you know, we'll be saying stuff, and definitely because we're not of that origin, we would say it because we don't speak the language. So it sounds cool, or it sounds cute, or it sounds, it's different. So you would think, well, hey, I'm speaking a holy language because I'm speaking a language I don't speak. But this is the language of people of common folks, just like if you go to Spain, they speak Spanish. You go to Europe, they might, depend on where you go in Europe. You go to Germany, they're going to speak German. You go to Polish, they're going to speak Polish. You go to France, they're going to speak French. If you go to Ireland, they're going to speak Irish. You go to Africa, they're going to speak whatever tribal dialect they speak. You come to America, they speak English. So it's just the language of the people. So if you're an American and you go to Arabia and they speak in Arabic, it doesn't make it a holy, that's just the language of the people. And from reading the Bible, we know that, the language was changed because of the Tower of Babel, and everybody's language was confounded. So everybody walked away speaking a different tongue, speaking a different language. So one language ain't no holier than the other languages. It's just, what do you understand? Do you understand English better than you understand Arabic? Do you understand Hebrew, Yiddish, better than you understand Greek? Or Italian, which is Greek. So that's one misconception that we have, is that, when people come with their religious books and definitely from the East, because that's primarily where all these three major religions come from, Arabia, between Arabia, Egypt, and, Europe, Turkey, Italy, Persia. This is the area in which our Christian, Judaic Islam comes from. It doesn't come from, Africa. It doesn't come from Ethiopia. It doesn't come from, Ghana. This basically comes from the Middle East, and the Mesopotamian, the Mediterranean, the Arabian, these areas. So they have their language, they have their culture. We look at the way they dress with the turbans on and the loose clothing, and we think it's so elegant and so beautiful and so holy. But we don't understand the climate over there, the weather, the dust, the heat, the cold. We don't know why they dress the way they dress, why they look the way they look, But we see it as, oh, this is some holy tradition that we need to be a part of. Not truly understanding the culture. We're just converting to this. So, when dealing with the Shahada, I just want us to get familiar with the Shahada. So, it's a little video to kind of break that down a little bit. It's only 3 minutes when speaking on the Shahada.
وإلهكم إله واحد لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The intention of this video is to teach those who do not speak Arabic or who are beginners at Arabic, or if you are revert to Islam, how to say the Shahada. The Shahada is what you would say if you want to become a Muslim, if you are not Muslim. Muslims also say it in prayers, in Quran, as a dua, etc. In English, the Shahada translates as, I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his final slave and messenger.
See what I'm saying about the followance of man? And, the first part is beautiful. There's no God but the God, the only God, the creator of heaven and earth. That should be the end. That should be the end of it. We don't need to give homage to the messenger. What we need to understand is the message.
Inshallah, you find this video beneficial. Ashhadu an ashhadu an la ashhadu an la ilaha ashhadu an la ilaha.
All right, so let's break this down. Ashhadu and la. I testify there's no God. Okay? Ashhadu, I testify that, and no, which is la, illah, which is God. So what you're saying is, I testify that no God. Okay? I testify, or I bear witness, and that la, no, illah, God. Continuing.
Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
So, ashhadu and la ilaha illallah. So, I bear witness that no ilah, right, but the God. So I testify, I should do that, and no la illah, God, Allah, but the God. Okay, now you say wa, which is and.
Ashhadu. Ashhadu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna
Wa hashadu, and I bear witness that Muhammadan, which I'm going to break down what Muhammadan means.
Muhammadan. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah. Rasul Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
So, ashhadu and la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So, the second part, and I bear witness that Muhammad or Muhammadan or Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. Okay? So that's what you say when you say the Shahada in the traditional Sunni Islamic form. Now, when I took my Shahada, this is what I meant when I said those very words. I said, Ashhadu and Allah. I bear witness that God, there's no the God. All right? I've noticed that when it comes to the Shahada, there's different ways that they say it. All right? There's different ways that they say it. Some say Ashhadu and Allah, wa Ashhadu and na Muhammadin Rasulullah. All right? Which basically translate as I bear witness that Allah, God, there's La, no, Allah, the God. Wa ashhadu, and I bear witness, and na, that, Muhammadin. Now, in Arabic, the prefix mu means to act. It's a verb, means to act. Hamid means praised, like as being praised, or commendable. Okay? So Muhammad, the name defines as the commendable action, or to act commendable, or to act in a way that you will be praised for your character, basically. So that's like being a Muslim. Being mu is an action, salam. So you're acting in peace, being a Muslim. So being Muslim means to act in peace. So if you're acting in a peaceful way, if you're keeping a peaceful demeanor about yourself, you got a peaceful characteristic about yourself, then I'm pretty sure that the people will commend you because you are a peaceful person. You would be praised. People would say, nah, that's a good person. He's a real nice person, never get irate, never seen him with an attitude, real nice person, really helpful, stay to themselves, don't be in everybody's business. Just, always say good morning. Just a nice, peaceful person, That's all that means to me. So when I say I bear witness that God, there's no the God, and I bear witness that the action of commendability is the prophecy of Allah. So for me to act in a way that shows what I believe in peace. I believe in giving peace and having peace. I mean, that is supposed to be the religion itself. This is why we say Assalamu alaikum. Because we're trying to give that energy of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. And what do you give back to me? Wa alaikum assalam. And unto you be peace. So we're wishing for the peace of the other individual. And the individual is wishing for the peace of us. So that energy of peace, not war, not hate, not pointing the finger, not condemning, but peace. That shows you as a peaceful person. According to the hadith, it was asked the Prophet, what is a good Muslim? What did the Prophet say? A good Muslim is a Muslim that do not put his hands on another Muslim to harm them, that does not speak vow to another Muslim, do not speak harshly to another Muslim, but speak peacefully and acknowledge peacefully those that they know and don't know. So a good Muslim is a Muslim that is of peace. This is what is mentioned in the hadith as the description of the characteristic of a Muslim, not a Sunni, not a Shiite, not a Muhammadan follower, a Muslim. So when you say a Shahada, all you're saying is that, look, I testify that God, there's no the God. There's only God. Ain't no the God. It's only God. And I testify that my actions of peace, of commendability, is the prophecy of Allah. That is the prophet of Allah. The prophet of Allah is supposed to be a person of peace, not of war. That's why everybody loved Jesus, because he was more Muslim than Muhammad, because he was peaceful. He never laid his hand on anybody to harm them. He spoke peace. He spoke health. He spoke life. That's the true character of a Muslim. And not to mention that Jesus called out to Allah while he was on the cross. He said, Allahi, Allahi, why have you forsaken me? You always bear the question, was Jesus a true Muslim? Yes, he was. The true Muslims in general, is mentioned in the Old Testament. I believe Muslim is mentioned in the New Testament as well. According to the Quran, Abraham was a Muslim. Isaac was a Muslim. And Jacob was a Muslim. And Jacob passed that religion of Islam to his children, who were the 12 tribes of Israel, according to Surah 2, Ayat 1, 3, 4. Jacob's religion is Islam. So what's the separation here? Muhammad was a Jew. and a Muslim. He stayed with a Muslim Jewish family. He made salat towards Jerusalem. Jesus was basically Muslim. He called out to Allah. What's the problem? Why is it a separation within Islam? What is the jihad all about? The struggle is supposed to be the act of trying to maintain peace. The struggle shouldn't be about eradicating another ethnic, religious group of people, trying to impose your will on these people. Your true religious strategy as a Muslim is to promote peace so you can invite people to be peaceful. You will want people to say, you know what, I want to convert to this because it's a good religion. It's a religion of peace. It's, I feel safe. It's not like I'm banding with these people because I'm against those people. The enemy of your enemy is not always your friend. So the history of the religion bothers me. The condition of the religion, of the deen of Sunni Islam bothers me. Shiite, all the different fashions of Islamic religious culture, Christian religious culture, Judaic religious culture is wicked. You can't deny that it's not. So, why did I choose AsLam? What is AsLam anyway? Versus what Islam is. Let's break down what is Islam is defined as submission to God. And it comes from the root word aslama, which means to submit. So Islam means to submit. Now, you can submit voluntarily, or you can submit by force. Be submitted by force. You can be converted forcibly, or you can convert voluntarily. Either way, the name means submission, meaning that there are those who will impose their will and make people submit or subject them to some type of servitude under the banner of this religion. It means, according to the Islamic definition, according to the Arabic definition, submission, that's what it means. Now it says submission to God, but in any case it means submission. Now you can submit to almost anything. You can submit to following the Prophet. You can submit to giving honor to the Imam. You can submit to the Sharia law. You can submit to whatever you want to submit to. You can be forced to submit. I mean, we're forced to submit to paying rent, water bill, car note, car insurance, mortgage, property tax. We're submitted to deal with the fact that the government steals money out of our check before we even get our money. We're submitted we have to submit to this new culture of the LGBTQ community and this culture of no gender recognition in the culture of, we have to deal with the culture of women disrespecting themselves and being over sexualizing themselves. This is something that we have to submit to, because unfortunately we're not trying to change it. So being that we're not trying to change what's going on, that we know that's not right, then we're submitting to it. So submission is not always righteous. It's not always beautiful. Most times submission is terrible because you're forced to submit. But the definition of AsLam. This is the definition of AsLam. So we have the A, or the Aleph, which also can be used as a prefix, which means, I believe, it is or are, meaning like, is or are. So AsLam can mean is peace or are peace. Basically, the word itself is defined in the Arabic language as meaning safer, more freer, intact, or also it means to submit. Not submission, but to submit. A voluntary action to submit. And what am I submitting to as a Islamic Muslim? What am I submitting to? I'm submitting to my dedication towards Allah. Only. I don't follow no prophets. I listen to the message. If Allah has sent a message through his prophets, Allah wants me to take heed to the message, not the messenger. The messenger is just a vessel. If I take a vessel and pour water in there so I can quench my thirst and don't die from dehydration, I know the water is in the vessel. It's in the vase. Am I going to neglect to drink the water because I love how beautiful the vase looks? I'm going to just sit and stare at the vase. The water is going to evaporate eventually. And I'm going to die of starvation, of thirst and dehydration, because I love the vase more than the water that is in the vase that can help me sustain life. No, I'm giving more honor to the vase, which can't do nothing for me. The message is inside the vase, which is the water. That's what's going to heal me. That's what's going to carry me on through life. The water is the message. The vase is just the tool. It's just the body in which the message is housed in. It's the message that we have to get. And we're not getting the message because we're paying too much homage. We're paying too much attention to the messenger. To the point that, according to the hadith, if you call the Prophet Muhammad black, that is a phrase that is worthy of death. They cut your head off for that. That's in the hadith. So, and even in the hadith, every time they describe a black individual, if a character in the hadith is black, best to believe they are described as a abid, as a slave. All black people in the hadith, in the Quran, if mentioned, are classified as slaves, religious slaves or just slaves in general. So if you're black, you are classified as a slave according to the Arab Sunni religious culture. So if 50% or 48% of Africa is Islamic, best to believe that the Arabs, the Turks, the white Muslims, the Turkish Muslims, view blacks as their religious servants. This is why if you go into a place of business that caters to the black community, maybe like a chicken shack or something of that nature, Pakistani or whatever, Arabs, running a chicken shack or whatever, when you go in there, you will always see, most likely you will see African Muslims, but they're Africans, working in the chicken shack. And you always ask, why do they only hire Africans? All these black Americans, and they only hire Africans to work in the chicken shack. The Indians, they only hire Africans. Why? Because they believe within their literature, within their religious books, that blacks are there, even if the black is a Muslim. He is their religious servant, slaves. It's been like that since the so-called time of Muhammad. So how are you as a dark complected individual? How are you accepting in acceptance to that, and don't want to change that aspect about your religion? The Gospels doesn't condemn dark-skinned people. It classified Jesus as being a dark-skinned individual. It classified, I think it was John or Paul, as being a nigger. And in the Greek, nigger is a good word. It's not a bad word. It means to anointed black, the righteous blacks. The Jews basically underline it. It's a hidden fact that niggers, according to the New Testament, were actually the Jews. That's what they call the Jews, niggers. In the Old Testament, if you was dark, it didn't even specify, complexion as far as an importance. It did talk about white in the Old Testament, and being white, being that if you lack melanin to the point that you have no color, that's a curse from Allah. Now that's mentioned. There's a certain tribe of people who were turned white as a curse, and the Israelites were supposed to, the Hebrews or whatever, and the Israelites were supposed to totally murder and kill these white people who were turned white by God as a curse. That's mentioned. As far as the Old Testament, as far as being white is a curse. The New Testament doesn't condemn black. But when we get to the Quran, all of a sudden every black person described as black is a slave or Ethiopian slave, a Cushite slave. So we see that even with it's still, even within the religion, there's a separation. So this is why I'd rather practice AsLam, which means something a little safer, or something a little more freer. I believe that Allah wants me to be free. I believe that Allah wants me to be intact. And I believe that Allah wants me to voluntarily submit to Him, not by force. Not by, popular belief. Not because of some political reason. This is why I joined Islam, because I don't like this religion over here, or these people in this religion won't accept me because of my skin complexion. So I'm going to join a religion that they don't like. This is what the Nation of Islam was predicated on. After Farad Muhammad, which was a Turk, he was from Turkey. After Farad Muhammad taught Elijah Poole, who changed his name to Elijah Muhammad, and Farad Muhammad learned a lot of his teachings that he taught to Elijah Muhammad from the noble Drew Ali, who was a Moorish Hebrew. They believed that they were Jews and Moors. And there's a deeper history to that. But the Nation of Islam, the fruit of Islam, as far as the black nationalist Islam that was created right here in America, was created as a resistance to the white establishment. It was supposed to be an alternative to white Jesus, to white religion. So it was a us against them thing, not a us being dedicated to Allah, and Allah will render us of our enemies. As long as we are at peace with each other, we are at peace with our community, we respect one another, we show each other peace, we look out for each other, we patronize each other, we teach the proper life skills to the generations ahead of us to keep this peaceful tradition, no matter what the enemy does, no matter what the enemy says, we doing our thing over here. That's not what happened. It was a us against them thing. Just like how Islam started. It was an us against them thing. And we need to be a part of a religion that's a little more safer. That give us more freedom to interact with Allah one-on-one. Something that you want to submit to. Not because everybody else is doing it. Not because it's something different. It's something foreign. You like the musical overtone of the recitation of the Quran. And I like listening to the Quran. I like the singing and the harmonizing of the text. But that's not why I became Muslim. I feel like I was Muslim before I knew what the word meant, because I was always about peace. And I think that's what a Muslim should be, about peace. In every aspect of it. Even if you go to war for peace. Somebody's oppressing you. Somebody's doing you wrong. You did not initiate this treatment. So now you have to eliminate the problem, because these people are taking advantage of your peaceful nature. Peace does not always have to be subservient or passive. Peace is a warrior. Peace does not divide, it doesn't bow down. You're not going to take my peace from me. I will eradicate you. I will chop your head off. I will go to war with you to have some peace in my life. I'm not going to let you stand over me, wag your finger, dictate to me, enslave me, belittle me. That's not why I exist. That's not why Allah created me. He created me to be free. He created me to live, love, and learn. Take care of his earth. procreate, so I can resurrect myself again through my children, through my grandchildren, and through the generations ahead of me. To provide some stability for my family to grow on. To be able to sit down and look at my children and grandchildren, to be able to cuddle with my wife and not have fear that another man is going to come and try to talk to my wife or engage in some sexual conversation. I ain't got to worry about her being promiscuous or disrespecting me by showing her body, a body that she volunteered to give to me. I'm stingy. I want it all for myself, and I don't want nobody else. It's like when I was a kid and my toys was around the room. I didn't want anybody touching my toys. I don't care if I didn't play with the toy at all. Don't touch my toy. It's mine. And I feel like if this woman said, I'm yours, I'm giving my body to you, then that's who it should be for. It shouldn't be on display for every man, every passerby to see. That's not peace. That's not making me feel good. Every time you walk out the house, you got a little skirt on. I got to worry about, well, maybe this guy that's tall, or maybe a guy that's more handsome, got more money, make her laugh more. He might get with her. He might get her. Then what's that left for me? Now I got uncertainty, anxiety. Now I'm jealous. I'm upset. Now I want to impose my will on you, and you got to cover your face. You got to walk around with a sheet on your whole body. I don't want nobody looking at you. Don't be looking at nobody. I'll stone you. I'll chop your head off. Matter of fact, don't leave the house unless I'm with you. That's not peace. That's not peace for her. That's not peace for him. Sure, he might feel empowered because he feel like he a man and he's ordering his house, but she's miserable. And this is what Muslims are going through, especially, in the East, in the African countries, in the Middle Eastern countries, and further east. Not really here in America because, our women have a lot more freedom and don't have to deal with that nonsense. So that's why when these Sunnis are coming into America, Canada, and Europe, and seeing mass rapes, because according, to their literature, a woman that does not wear a hijab, that does not wear a head covering, can be raped, can be assaulted sexually. And there is no haram, there's no sin in them doing that to that woman, into, raping this woman because she didn't have a hijab on. Now, is that crazy or what? But they go to other people's countries that do not practice in the same belief, and they start imposing religious oppression. They start calling for their religious laws to be practiced in someone else's country, in someone else's culture. They try to not assimilate, but take over. That's not peace. You have your land. Islam is one of the fastest growing religions in the world, and they spread out in everybody's so-called pagan nation. They don't stay in their own. So it must be something wrong in Arabia. It must be something wrong in North Africa. It must be something wrong. It must not be peace if you're running away. And then you come somewhere else and you serve people, people of different ethnicities, bad food, and you talk bad about these people, and you do all this stuff under the cover of Islam. You want to condemn people for Christmas and New Year's and Easter, but that's not your tradition. Why are you worried about them? Why is that your focus? Why you keep pointing out the bad in them to make yourself look more righteous, but you don't want to talk about the things you have done? So that's why I believe, that's why I chose to follow AsLam, which means to be safer, to be more freer. I want to be free of the Mohammedan followers. I want to be free of the rabbis' order. I want to be free of the Pope and the papacy and the Jesuits. And I just want to be free of organized religion. That's not why I'm religious. That's not why I believe what I believe. I believe what I believe because of my experiences and my yearning to be accepted by God. I want to be commendable to God because one day I'm going to die. One day I'm not going to be here. And all my work and everything I ever done is just, it's going to be void. It's not going to mean anything. I can work and save money and do all this extraordinary stuff with my life and then die. And then what? They put me in the ground and that's it. So between my birth and my death, however many years that I am here, everything I've done will mean absolutely nothing when I die. So my purpose is to be acceptable to Allah, to my God. And I truly know that Allah wants peace on earth, you know. From what I've read, from what I study, from what I truly believe, that God wants me to have peace. Maybe I go through things so He can relieve me of whatever struggle I'm going through and give me peace. This is why we go through struggle, so we can appreciate peace. You're not going to know peace if you don't know struggle. You're not going to know sunshine if you've never been through the night. You're not going to know what's hot if you ain't never been burned. And it's just the point. And this is why I chose AsLam. Because ain't nobody going to tell me how many times to pray. Ain't nobody going to tell me what to say. I'm going to say what's in my heart. I'm going to submit how many times I feel like submitting, when I feel like submitting, at whatever time I feel like submitting. You're not going to force me to follow your way. Because your way is not the way of Allah. Your way is the way of control. You want numbers. That's why Islam is one of the biggest, largest growing religions in the world, because they let anybody in. Anybody. You want to be Muslim? Take a shahada. I should do. And Allah. What I should do. And na Muhammadin Rasulu Allah. Oh, you're Muslim. MashaAllah. Now what? Now what? Yeah, you don't know what's in my mind, what I got planned, who I was before, what I'm trying to do with this. You don't know if I'm really dedicated to Allah or I'm just trying to be down just to be down. You don't know. Oh, all you got to do is confess that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. Dunk your head in some water and poof, you Christian. You good to go. What? No. I don't know your intentions. I don't know if you're really true. But if I'm trying to set up an organization, then I'm going to make it very easy for people to join, because I want numbers. Through numbers is strength. And when people see a large body of people directed towards a certain way, you see everybody walking down the street, you see a line, 100, 200 people walking down the street, going wherever they going, and you standing there like that, where everybody going? You like, yeah, where everybody going? They ain't saying nothing, they just walking. It's just large groups of people walking past you, just walking down the street like wherever they going somewhere. And what you gonna do? You standing there and everybody walking, hundreds of people walking by you. They all together walking in a certain direction as if they're trying to go to a certain point. And you're standing there, you don't know what's going on. You just standing, what the hell? Like, what is going on? Where everybody going? Like, you asking people, excuse me, where everybody going? They ain't saying nothing. Man, I don't know. Like, where everybody going? Where you going? Where everybody going? They ain't saying, nobody knows. They just following other people. And what you gonna do after a while? You gonna start following them too, out of curiosity. I just want to see where they go. I just want to see what it's all about. Not knowing you walking straight off a cliff. That's where you walking. Everybody's falling off a cliff. You just can't see that far down. But because everybody else is walking that way, instead of you being an individual with your own mind free and say, I don't know where they're going, but I'm going to stay right here. No, you're going to follow them. And that's what's going on in the world. And we need to practice something that gives us a little more freedom. We need to have respect for one another, respect for our women, especially our women. I had a discussion with my brother Moo earlier. I must have disappointed him because I didn't share in the same attitude of, making my women, submit to me, or I feel like, I'm the man and they supposed to, listen to what I'm saying, this, that, and the third. And I just told him, I said, man, you got a real different type of mind about yourself. I said, that might work for them in the East. You go to Arabia, you go to Africa, and their women are second, third class citizens. That might work for them. They've been doing that. In America, it ain't like that here. I said, definitely with black folks. Now, you might think you from Africa, but we don't act like that. No. I said, here, black women rule the household in America. It always has been like that, and it always will be like that. I said, when a white man came over here, right, he didn't go to the black man. Now, when you go to the East or wherever, you go to the black man, and you want to destroy a nation, you destroy a nation by destroying the black man. As far as going through the man, you have to destroy the black man. The woman is second, third class citizen. So you ain't got, once you destroy the black man, you sexually enslave, the woman. But not here in America. When a European came over here, they had to go through the black woman. They had to go through the chief of the tribe, which was the black woman. That's why the black woman is still the chief of our household today. The big mamas, the baby mamas are still running our communities. Now, mentally, our women are not right. They're not correct. And there do needs to be a correction. But to think within our culture that men rule, if you haven't lived in the black community, then, you don't know. But it's the females that rule. Always has been in our community. Because truly, a lot of us don't realize that there are different, just like there's different ethnicities of Arabs, and there's different ethnicities of Asians, there's different ethnicities of European or white folks. Guess what? Oh, and there's different ethnicities of Hispanics, Latinos. Now, do I got to name them all? Dominican, Puerto Rican, Colombian, Venezuelan, Mexican, Puerto Rican. I got to name the Africans, the Igbos, the Yorubas, the Berbers, the Limba, the Mandi, the Ashanti, the Mandingo. What about Arabia? You got the Turks, you got the Saudis, you got the Yemenites, you got the Meccaans. You know, you got a whole bunch of tribes over there. What about the Asians? You got the Japanese, the Chinese, the Koreans, the Vietnamese. What about Europe? You got the German, the Polish, the French, the Scandinavian, the Slovakian, the British, the Irish. Then you got the Portuguese, you got the Spaniard. So you got different ethnicities of people. So why can't, when it come to black folks, you can't have different genotypes, different ethnicities of black people? Why, when it comes to us, all black is the same black? No, that's not true. The blacks from America are different than the blacks from Brazil. You know, even though we are all on the same Western Hemisphere, but this is where we're from. Just like the Aboriginals of Australia. They ain't never say they was from Africa. What about the Samoans? They ain't bring them from Africa. So when you realize that different genotype of the black species, and your landmass was here in America. This is where you're from. This is your land. And you had a certain culture which has been associated with the Asiatic, Mongolian, Mexican-looking people who they now call Native Americans. But those are not the real Native Americans. Because if they was the real Native Americans, they wouldn't know that they was the real Native Americans. They would just call them by another name because they stole their land, just like they did us. So in our American culture, the women were the chiefs of our tribes. They always was, they always is, and they always will be. It ain't till when these people come to America, they see the attitude of the black woman. The snapping of the... We think that's ghetto. No, that's that chief mentality. That's why when these other women from these other countries, where in their countries, they can't talk back to their men, they on a... They second, third class citizens, they ain't got no rights. And then when they come over here, when they get off the plane and they get off the boat and they step foot in America and they see a black woman come walking and somebody say something to her, she be like, what? I don't know who you think you talking to, but you ain't talking to me. Let me call Tyrone because you about to get They like, who you talk? They like, that's how these women talk over here? You talk to your men like that? And the black woman be like, girl, bye. Ain't nobody thinking about them men. I'm the queen bee. I'm the diva. I'm the bitch. And next thing you know, these chicks from Arabia and chicks from Africa, next thing you know, they start acting like black women. They walking around with their tongue out, trying to get their little baby hairs popping on their forehead and stuff. You know, they dressing like us and they twerking and doing all that. And then next thing you know, them African men and them Arab men be trying to kill them because you trying to act Americanized. You don't see white women acting like that. That is the culture of the black American woman, because truly, in essence, the black American woman were the chief of the tribes. Why you think when you read the Willie Lynch letter, the majority of the letter is the slavers trying to manipulate the black woman into submitting to the white man. And how did he do that? He beat down her black men, her sons, her husbands, her brothers. And what she did, she submitted to the white man to protect the black man. And that's what happened. So in our culture here, we can take the best of Islam. Take the beautiful sayings and the beautiful words and some of the cultures that will give us peace. We can take from the Gospels. We can take what Isa said, what Jesus said, the good parts. We can go into the Old Testament, take those 10 commandments, take those laws and apply them to our nation if it's going to benefit our nation. We don't want our women walking around like sex objects. We want them to cover up. Not by force, but by beautiful tradition. Especially if you're married. Now, if you ain't married, you're looking for you a man, and you want to walk out there like, all right, cool. But it's still supposed to be a level of respect for yourself. A man is going to want you regardless. You ain't got to show nothing. Once he know that you're a female, he already going to want you. That's just nature. You don't have to, underdress yourself to be appealing to a man or be appealing to the type of man that you want for life or just for right now. You don't have to do that. Men don't have to go for that type of woman because he think, well, I ain't got no money and I ain't got a nice car. I don't look that good, so let me sleep with the easiest thing that looks like a gimme some real easy because I ain't got no money. So if she a hoe, that's what I'm going to go to because I don't feel like I'm economically or financially worth or I don't have the features that women like. Because we are all programmed to like a certain type of individual and this, that, so we have to break down some of those things that's not really of peace for our nation. So I can, I'm changing it. I'm a part of AsLam, which means safer, more intact, to be freer. I want us to free ourselves from the chains of these organized religions that truly Christianity started in Jerusalem, between Jerusalem and Italy. It has not given peace to that region of the world. Islam, Muhammad, Sunni Islam started right there in Arabia, right there in Medina. There is no peace for those people. Matter of fact, Allah is cursing those people with drought. No food, no water, no nothing over there for them. Why? Because they lie in the name of Allah. Judaism. There's no peace for them. You got more Jews, so-called white Jews, French Jews, Polish Jews, whatever, German Jews, living everywhere else but in the state of Palestine. And you go to Palestine, what the Jews are doing to the Palestinians is supposed to be the same thing that Hitler did to them. But is that not the story of the Exodus? The same thing that the Egyptians did to the Israelites went right into the land of Canaan and did the same thing to them. Is that fair? Is that right? They say, well, God said it was okay. Well, maybe God was showing what not to be and what not to do. Everybody, these religions are basing their cultures and traditions off the Israelites, off the Hebrew story. That's what they're basing. The Muslims, the Sunni Islamics are basing their whole religious off of the Jews and the Christians. The Christians is basing their whole religious idolatry off of the Israelites. So at the end of the day, Islam and Christianity comes from the story of a people who were oppressed by one people and went into someone else's land and started to oppress them. And then wound up assimilating into the culture that they was oppressing, and then that culture turned around and oppressed them. Because they wasn't in the land of Canaan very long. So, with all them stories, there is no peace. We have to create a new story. Let 2,000 years from now, let that story start of a people that said no more. No more lies, no more trickery. We really want peace. We really want salvation. We really want redemption. I really want my family to be safe. I want my children's children to be safe, to be at peace, to grow and prosper. I want humanity. I don't want to have to look over my back and this, that, and the third. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want these corporations to destroy the air I breathe, the water I drink, the food I eat. They are destroying the very essence of life. Under the code of religion, I believe, as Black Americans, are in a privileged situation here if we stop trying to imitate and emulate these people from the East, these people from Europe, with their divide, with their hate for one another, with their infighting. If Muslims of Arabia, the Middle East, got a problem with white Jews from Europe, that's their problem. If Christian Africans are killing Muslim Africans, and Muslim Africans are killing Jewish Africans, and Christian Africans, that's their problem. They ain't got nothing to do with us over here. Nothing. We in a privileged situation because we are in a country that has the freedom of religion, the freedom to practice whatever religion you want. You can make up a religion if you feel like it. The Mormons did it. Jehovah's Witnesses did it. We can make up a religion that benefits our agenda towards peace, prosperity, unity, community, family. We can do that. We don't gotta be like them, act like them, learn their language. And all we doing is being subservient to them. They ain't even trying to fix their own countries. They come over here and impose their religions, and then we voluntarily subject ourselves to enslavement under their religious theology. Speaking a language we don't know nothing. We don't know what they're talking about. We can do better. We have the opportunity to do better. I'm taking that chance. And I'm promoting it. I'm letting you know you don't have to be a slave. It's a choice. Let's choose something different. Let's be different. Let's be the examples that God wants us to be. We need to show the world how to do it right. We are already, the culture of the world. There would be no culture if it wasn't for Black Americans, and you have to admit that. We can spread this beautiful, peaceful truth. We really could. You gotta remember, it only takes a few to make the greater difference. It only takes a handful to really make an impact. The Israelites came from one man and one woman. It was a small family. A small family. I know a few people that done had 9 children, 12 children. I know a few women that done had those many kids. My sister got 4. What if Jacob only had 4 kids? What would it be, the 4 tribes? What about the lost tribe of Shabazz? That's just one tribe. A tribe is a family. That's it. A tribe is a family. It's only talking about one family. The family of Abraham created what we know as the Bible today, the Gospels today, the Quran today. Muhammad comes from one family. And there's 1 billion people following him. So that just shows you that it only takes a very minute hiccup in the programming to change things. You don't need a large congregation. You don't need that. You just need a few who are dedicated to what they believe and what they're trying to do. That will fight to make the goal. Not to get prestige, not to get money and rob the people, and so you can be carried on a platform like you God himself and everybody bowing down to you. There's some people that want that, and they're getting that. That's why we have celebrities now. People that we celebrate. You're supposed to celebrate God and God only. But y'all looking to celebrities, rappers and entertainers, actors. And you looking up to these people and imitating and emulating these people and believing everything that come out their mouth. They're getting paid to dance and sing and talk on TV and act like they political and act like they businessmen and act like they love the community. They don't care about none of that. But we're celebrating them. We're looking to them for answers. When the answers are already inside of us, all we got to do is go to Allah, and He would tell us what we need to know. He would guide us in the way in which we need to go. But we got to put our trust in Allah and Allah only. Stop looking to the prophets. Stop looking to that. Look to Allah. That's what He wants. So, this is why I'm practicing. I chose AsLam. Something a little safer, a lot freer, and that's more intact to what I believe. And I believe that I am submitted to Allah alone. I don't follow no prophet, no man, no nothing. And that's what makes me free. Because I follow Allah alone. That's what makes me free. That's what gives me my freedom. Shalom, shalom, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being with me. And if you want to convert to isLam, just go straight to God. Just be about peace and prosperity. Don't be a slave to the prophet, to the organized religion. Be free. We are all God's children. God reigns over all of us. We don't need a mediator. We can go straight to the boss. So be free. Be free of this nonsense. Be free of this mind trickery and this disease of enslavement and control. Free yourself. And I'm going to quote Isa. I'm going to quote Jesus Christ, and I'm going to let this go. The truth shall set you free.